Hi, thanks for checking back in with us at Soar America. We wanted to give you an update on what's been going on with us. We will have some really exciting news very soon about our crew. We're going to be really excited. It'll make the trip a lot more fun for us, so stay tuned for that announcement. Most recently, we took a 10-night trip in the RV for Eric to fly. We spent a week down at Seminole Lake in Florida and had a really great experience. We wanted to kind of do a dry run for the big trip, so we combined the camping and the flying. We had a good drive down. We found that it takes a little bit longer moving in the RV, especially with the trailer, than we may have anticipated. But we had a good drive, and getting into Florida and getting into some of the more rural areas was absolutely beautiful. We had been at Seminole Lake a few years back, and Eric was able to fly 5 days in a row, the whole 5 days he was there. So we went back there, and since then they have increased their camping and improved their sites, and so that worked really well.
The reason Florida was a good place to fly this time of year is the soaring isn't as good here in North Alabama yet in March as it is in Florida. It's pretty good in Florida in March. It's just barely starting to get good here in North Alabama. We were there at Seminole Lake for 7 days that I could have flown. The first 2 were poor weather, cold, windy, cloudy with occasional drizzle. People were wearing long pants and coats. No one flew. The next 5 days were all flyable. A couple of those days were pretty blue, not many cumulus clouds, and that just makes it harder to find where the lift is. But even on those days, you could stay up for hours if you wanted to. Only one of those 5 was at not so great a day, got a few hour flight, but wasn't able to really go anywhere. The other days, it was fairly good. Climbs were as high as about 6,000 feet above the ground. Most days it was more like 4.5 or 5, but that was plenty good to be able to go places, fly significant cross country. I flew the 5 days in a row and had a total of about 22 hours of flight time. So that's almost 4.5 hours average per flight. So my flight durations were from 3 to 5.5 hours, something like that. Distance-wise, I think the farthest I ever got from the airport, from Seminole Lake, was a little over 70 miles. I didn't look too much at my OLC distances. Maybe 1 or 2 was over 200 miles. Mostly, I was attempting to break records in the 13.5 meter class, and there weren't a lot of those on the books, so I didn't have to declare really big distances. And in order to increase my chances of breaking those records, I didn't go for the biggest distance that I could have done in those days. So my normal distances were maybe 1 to 200 miles, depending on how you count it. Some of the good things that came of this trip were, one, I had not flown my glider in almost 6 months. I've been flying the club's glider a good bit with students, but I hadn't flown my glider, so I hadn't had any long duration flights. I hadn't done much thermaling. There's not much thermaling to be done in North Alabama in the winter. Certainly hadn't done any cross country, so it helped me, one, just knock the rust off my thermaling skills and flying cross country, which is mostly mental, but having to think through how you make cross country flights. Also, I just bought this glider in July of last year. I only had about 30 hours on it when the season wound down last year, so I put 22 more hours of time in the glider, so I almost doubled my time in the glider. So that just helps me get familiar with the glider. Yeah, on the last day of the trip, I flew with the GoPro in the cockpit. That's the first time I've flown with the GoPro in this glider. I just wanted to see if it fit, if it was in my way, if it got a good framed shot. It all seemed to work well, just like it did in the LS3. That particular flight, I wasn't expecting to be a really big day. It started out blue. It was kind of tough in the beginning. So I called a fairly conservative task. It was to break the out and return distance, if I remember correctly, with a flight a little over 60 miles out to a turn point and then back. And early in the flight, it was blue. It was tough. I was trying to claw my way over to the semi-decent looking clouds 15, 20 miles away from the airport. I turned around at least once early in the flight thinking, okay, I'm not going to be able to make it. So I turn around, find more altitude, go back out. Did that once or twice, managed to claw my way over to the better clouds. I should say the clouds. There simply weren't any near Seminole Lake. Once I got to those clouds, it was pretty easy. Flew out, flew back, flew around for a little while. And that day I cut the flight short on purpose because I knew we were planning to leave the next morning and wanted to get in time to get things settled for the evening. So fun flight, good way to wrap up the week. Nothing outstanding was done on that flight, just another good, fun flight. Yeah, we'll be making a longer video of that flight using just most of the video I captured in it. I like to narrate a lot in the flight, tell you what I'm thinking, and make it somewhat educational, sort of as if you're in the cockpit with me, sharing how I think through a cross-country flight. So we'll release that soon.
We were able to spend a lot of time in getting me ready to crew for him. There's a lot of things I don't know about putting a glider together, so we went through that. He has meticulously put together a checklist so that the crew will be able to follow. So we made sure that that worked and that we'll be able to follow those instructions, and everybody's not going to be on top of each other, but we can understand and safely put the glider together. Also, getting the glider hooked up and unhooked is going to be an important part of the trip. And then also, just the actual flying, the towing the glider around, getting it ready to launch, whether he tows up or self-launches, running his wing, all those things. So it was a good experience for learning to know how all that goes.
So RV-wise, I don't know that we learned a whole lot, nothing real significant. So a lot of that is a credit to Julie for how she packed and planned and prepared. We were in the RV for 10 nights, and I felt no homesickness, no urge to get back to my bed. It was comfortable. We had what we needed. We never had to go to the store, to Walmart or the grocery store. We had what we needed. It worked out well. We learned a few small things, but I think the main thing we learned is I think we're basically prepared.
It'll be a little bit different on the big trip because we will be, maybe spending a night, maybe 2 nights before we pack up and move again, which will be a little more difficult. This week in Florida, we were able to stay in one place the whole time. So that will be a new challenge, but I think that will be super easy. We'll be, get that down pat, let's pack everything up and getting the RV ready to travel. But that will be a new aspect to the trip. So we're looking forward to it. Everything is still looking like we'll leave in about a month to leave Alabama and head toward California, which is our anticipated start point. And so we'll begin the trek from coast to coast a little over a month from now. We think it'll take a 4 to 5, maybe 6 days to get out there to get started. So we will continue to post updates and looking forward to get everything going. We really appreciate all the enthusiasm from our friends, family, and the soaring community. You can continue to follow us on our YouTube channel at Soar America, on our website, soaramerica.wordpress.com, and we have Facebook and Instagram pages, so just search for Soar America there as well. So thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.